What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mile High Hockey presented by our friends at Mountain High Appliance, coming at you every single day during the playoffs. Thanks to Mountain High Appliance. And Drew talked about a little bit with Mike yesterday. We mostly focused on game 5. So I want to flip things forward to game 6. Man, the Avalanche are one loss away from having their season end on May 1st. That's kind of tough to wrap your mind around based on our expectations for this team, not only after the trade deadline, but even how this series has played out through 5 games.
Yeah, it is. It really is for me, especially because of the fact that when I look at the way this whole series has played out, I'm more surprised that we're here than anything, just because of the fact I still feel, even though the Avalanche are down 3-2 in this series, facing elimination, they're coming off on the scoreboard, a 6-2 loss in game number 5. I still feel like they're the better team. And I think, there were some Avs players that we're kind of talking about a little bit today, as far as sometimes the better team doesn't always win a series. Sometimes the worst team can win one. It kind of fluctuates here and there. But I just look at the way that this whole thing is played out, and I can't believe we're in a situation where they are facing elimination this early on. I know Dallas is a good opponent, and I know a lot of people want to consider this the de facto Western Conference final, but it's disappointing that we're here, and it's frustrating that we're here. But I also still feel like the Avalanche are in I don't want to say advantageous position, because they're not. Obviously, they're down 3-2, but they're still in position where they can right this ship and make me feel like I'm justified, I guess, in saying that I do think that they're the better team in this series, despite what it says on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I think what's frustrating to me is you look at games 2 and 3, you had third period leads in those 2 games, and you let them slip away, and then you lost both in overtime. So all of a sudden you have a fluky puck luck game in game 5, and you're finding yourself down 3-2. I mean, Drew, we could simulate this series 100 times, and the Avs would either be up 3-2, 1-4-1, or swept it in 99 of them. Unfortunately, we are just living in the reality where this is the one time out of 100 where Dallas somehow has a 3-2 lead, and now your backs are against the wall. And guess what? If you don't get the puck luck in game 6, it may end your season. I'm not saying they blew a golden opportunity, because they're still playing, but I bet those guys in that room feel like, I cannot believe we are one loss away from going home for the year.
Well, and I wonder how they feel just knowing how game number 5 played out, because I thought that they played a really good first period, but it didn't show on the scoreboard, obviously, because Blackwood gives up a goal in the first minute, 9 seconds into this thing, and he gives up a goal in the last minute of the period. The 2 things you literally cannot do when you're playing a hockey game. You cannot give up a goal in the first and the last minute of a period, and they did both of those in one period. So I kind of wonder if there was a bit of a shock going into that locker room after that happened, thinking, yeah, we just played a really good period, and really to no fault of our own, anybody really, but kind of Mackenzie Blackwood in that situation, that we're down 2-0. Then you have to scratch and claw your way back into this thing in the second period. And I think they had all the momentum in that second period once they made it a 3-2 hockey game. If Sam Malinsky doesn't get called for what was probably a pretty weak call on the elbowing, and Dallas comes back and scores that power play goal, I think the Avalanche come back and win that game. They had all the momentum in that thing. And that power play goal that they gave up was it was a death blow. You could tell right there, they're like, it's 4-2 now. The Avs kind of just got kicked in the junk, and this thing is probably over for this game. But it's frustrating to see how this thing is played out. I know they've got to be frustrated. A lot of the key guys have got to be frustrated with the way they played in this series. Hopefully now you can go out and right the ship tomorrow night after having a couple days off to kind of reset, recharge, and you're coming home to what's going to be a charged environment. You don't have all the Gabe Landeskog stuff, kind of lingering over the series anymore. So hopefully you come out and you get a really good performance tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. They have to try to start fast, right? Be relentless. I think if Dallas gets a lead, that building's going to get a sense of deja vu from game 6 last year. Oh boy, here we go again. I mean, it was in the building when they lost in double overtime. I'm worried, Drew, that if they get down, there could be a nervous energy, right? Yeah. And that's the last thing we need is nervous energy. Man, it would feel good to look up at that scoreboard after the first period and see a 2 or 3-0 absolutely.
Well, and I wonder who's feeling the most pressure going into this thing. If you're Mackenzie Blackwood, how are you feeling knowing that you gave up those 2 goals in the first period and really just put your team in a unbelievably difficult position, and knowing how well you played going into that game? And we talked about it when we did the show on Monday that that Mackenzie Blackwood has been the best player in this series for the Avalanche. And it just, he picked a really bad time to have a really bad night. And it's unfortunate. But yeah, I think you're right. I think if you go out and you get things going early and often, maybe get an early power play in this game in the first 5-6 minutes, get a goal off that power play. You could kind of start to see this team steamroll to where Dallas is just like, well, you know what? At least we got game 7, and you might see kind of a similar type of result as what you saw in game 4 when the Avalanche, just steamrolled Dallas for that entire hockey game.
Well, Dallas did kind of wave the white flag in game 4, if you will, especially with DeBoer putting Ottinger in, or putting Ottinger on the bench for the final 20 minutes of the game. All right, so who are some guys that just really need to step up in your eyes? Yesterday, Mike and I talked about a lot of names: Cale Makar, Charlie Coyle, Brock Nelson, Jonathan Drouin, Marty Necas. Who for you is like, the Avs can win game 6 if blank plays his A game?
Can I say all of them? Yeah. I know it's cheating, but I mean, it's the truth. Like it starts, I think, for me, first and foremost with Cale Makar. He's been, I don't even know like how to describe what he's been in this series. He looks like a different player. He looks like somebody that, to me, may not be healthy. He might be battling some sort of lower body injury, because we're not seeing the same type of style, I think, from Cale Makar, with jumping into plays and skating with the speed and using his abilities the way we normally do. So to me, it kind of leads me to think, I wonder if we're going to find out once the season kind of wraps up that Cale Makar was dealing with something fairly significant in the lower body. But it starts with him, obviously. Where are the new guys? All these guys they brought in the trade deadline. Jack Drury's been the best new guy so far. He's got a goal in this series. Charlie Coyle's got a goal, but that one doesn't even really count because it was an empty netter at the end of game 1. So it's kind of like, where's Necas? Where's Brock Nelson? Where's Charlie Coyle? Like, these new guys have to step up and be better, because, I mean, Nathan McKinnon's doing his part. He's got 5 goals in the series. Yeah, I know 3 of them have come on the power play, but he's done his part in this series to kind of lead this team. So for me, I really want to see that second line get going. I want to see Val. I want to see Brock Nelson. I want to see Gabe Landeskog. He's played well in all the games he's played in this series. I just really want to see that second line get going to where you're putting more pressure on Dallas. And I think there's still kind of that lingering thing where we might see Miro Heiskanen in this game tomorrow night. And that could turn into a huge, huge factor in this thing because of the way that Colorado has struggled to put the puck in the net at 5-on-5. Now you add the second best defenseman in the series to a Dallas lineup. If it does happen, it's a little bit of a worrisome thing, but you got the home ice in this one for the game tomorrow night. Go out and get an early start, get an early power play, get a goal, and get this thing going. Yeah, I agree with you. And you're right. Heiskanen would be the ultimate wild card if he does somehow suit up for this game. And you look at what McFarland did. He reshaped the roster quite well on paper. But as Mike Evans likes to say, hockey ain't played on paper. No. And the problem is right now you've got a team that was literally remade overnight, Drew. I mean, it was totally changed from what it was in September till now. And the chemistry is not quite there, which is to be expected. But also you would hope that the talent would outweigh the chemistry. Well, and this is one of the things where I didn't like the way that they approached the last couple of weeks of the season, because this is a almost completely new roster. We got 9, 10, 11 guys on this roster that didn't start the season with this team. So how do you develop chemistry over a month and a half and then expect to jump into a playoffs against a high-quality opponent like Dallas and expect everything to go as smoothly as possible? It almost seems like kind of a fool's errand. Like, it's not, excuse me, it's not a realistic thing to have that happen. And I think Daily Faceoff had a really good article on it. I think it was yesterday. Frank Saravalli wrote, just kind of talking about how this roster was made up and how difficult it is for teams that make these types of moves and make as many moves as the Avalanche did to kind of overcome that and build that chemistry and expect them to do well in the playoffs. I mean, I think in that article, they had only 2 or 3 teams, I think, that advanced past the first round. And then that's not even including the fact that you're playing a top-notch opponent in Dallas. You're not playing, a scrub 8 seed that you're like, we're going to walk through in this series, 4-1 or whatnot. So I think Bednar and McFarland and some of these guys do deserve some leeway because this roster has gone through such turnover. But at the end of the day, they're pro hockey players. There's no excuse. You got to find a way to get it done and be better, because the fans deserve better. And I think this team has actually deserved better in this series. Yeah, we'll be back with more tomorrow as we continue to preview Game 6, and I think we can get into that Bednar and McFarland conversation. And
if the unthinkable happens, which is now feeling thinkable because they only have to lose one more game, if those two guys would be in trouble. Drew, appreciate your time. Appreciate everyone tuning in to Mile High Hockey. Same duo tomorrow. More Game 6 chatter. The Avs have to save their season.